Well, yeah, there are increasing calls for her to quit, to stop dividing the party if she's got no meaningful chance of succeeding. Now, we've got another national poll, GE poll, showing that the former president is still very much in the lead, beating Biden by 6 points. How much credence do you give to these polls, Annalise? There are so many in the US. And it's often said that Trump's support is understated in polling, but surely that can't be the case when you look at the lead he's developed in some of these polls.
Oh, yeah, and you're absolutely right. There is no end to the number of polls that come out in the United States, but you really have to look at these swing state polls. And so that's defined as any state that had a margin of less than 3%. Those are the ones that can change and deliver those critical electoral college votes that will actually decide how this election plays out. And one of the unprecedented things we're facing in this is Donald Trump's trials. We don't know how these are going to land. We don't know if they're going to knock him out. And while he has more of the grassroots funding, he's not got the big donors behind him. And that's becoming a problem when we're talking about his legal fees and the fine he just received from this civil case in New York. That is not an insignificant amount of money to be talking about hundreds of millions of dollars when election campaigns cost multi-billion US dollars.
Now, the president's son is insisting he's facing the ultimate test for a recovering addict, going so far to say that democracy is at risk if he relapses. Hunter Biden told Axios, "You have to believe you're worth the work or you'll never be able to get sober. But I often do think of the profound consequences of failure here. I have something much bigger than even myself at stake. We are in the middle of a fight for the future of democracy." Oh my gosh, Annalise, talk about delusions of grandeur.
Well, I mean, talk about mismanaged problem because, okay, look at the fact that he's doing this interview with Axios. Axios is a great publication. It's very reputable, but it's known for being the one that gets information out quick in breaking news with policy dot points. So to have an interview about your son's drug addiction in this kind of format, it shows that they're so nervous about how this information is going to get out. They have to put it in this really limited and kind of awkward format. And it also shows that they don't know how to handle this going into the election, that they know it is going to be a problem. They're trying to manage Joe Biden's immigration policy issues. He's having to go to the border now and ending up on the same day as Donald Trump, which will be on Thursday. But the other thing that they're looking at is what's going to happen on Capitol Hill with the special prosecutor who looked into Biden's classified documents is going to be testifying. And there's a real push to have the full transcript of Biden's interviews with that. And so they're going to be facing so many questions about his mental capacity that this is just another fire that they're going to have to put out.
Is it just a transcript, or is there a possibility that we may actually hear the tapes and hear what the special prosecutor was referring to about how confused he was, how he was forgetting key moments, including his vice presidency when his son passed away? All sorts of data you would expect him to retain.
Yeah, and that turned out to be one of the most emotive points when Biden called that extraordinary late night press conference when he said that they brought it up and that's why he lost his temper and lost his place. My understanding is there are tapes and that's where the transcripts have come from, that they've been transcribed from those tapes and people want to see them. They want to hear what's in them. It's not necessarily the normal protocol, but given how significant this is, there might be a way that House Republicans can find it. By the same token, because they have decided to not proceed with the trial, that tends to be when this stuff doesn't get made public because there's no argument for public interest there necessarily. So I think we all want to see it, but whether they can find a way to make it happen is the question.
Now, social media has erupted in the past couple of weeks over Google's AI technology after it found all sorts of just craziness. Indian Prime Minister Modi was called a fascist. It showed America's founding fathers to be women of colour, generated images of the Pope as an Indian woman. I mean, the list is endless. Google's paused its Gemini AI technology from generating images while it seeks to correct this so-called woke bug. But Annelise, it isn't a bug at all. This is very much by design. And as Mark Andreessen put it, I know it's hard to believe, but big tech AI generates the output it does because it is precisely executing the specific ideological, radical, biased agenda of its creators. The apparently bizarre output is 100% intended. It is working as designed. It may be working as designed, but it's certainly not being accepted. Tell me about this story, because if you're not in the tech space, you may have missed it, but we all use Google, and this ideological capture is also evident elsewhere in the company.
Well, I mean, look, it all comes down to how this information is presented and what we're telling AI we want to hear. And so this really goes to the broader issue of how much we give AI the opportunity to be crafting what we put down as objective facts and the truth. And I mean, be careful what you wish for. If you start to rewrite history to that extent, then what does that mean for the rest of us? I mean, if you talk about rewriting our founding fathers as African American, how does that lend itself to a conversation about reforming the Electoral College because of criticism that it's based off of racist principles? I mean, we have there was a point at which it was 3/5 of a vote for every black person compared to white people. But how do you have that conversation if you've rewritten what just happened before? But this is just so much a part of the conversation around how we need more transparency around how these tech companies put this information together and shape what we're fed, because that's so critical. It's not how you are picking up Google and saying, I want to find this information. It's the information they're presenting to you to feed what they have designed as the information that's important.
Absolutely, and then we've got cases of Google admitting as far back as 2018 that their search results are designed to favour equity over accuracy. This is, I think, an issue we need to talk a lot more about because they've got a monopoly. It's a very powerful monopoly. Annelise Nielsen, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time this evening.